Bienvenidas, bienvenidos. Welcome back to Que Madre and Warrior Mother. Today we are with Shevon Hoover and myself, Ana Rosa Rizo Centino. We are missing Ellie Cortez, but hopefully we'll have her back next week. And you know, we're actually really happy to talk to you all about a few different topics in light of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which was just yesterday. So I'll hand it over to the amazing, beautiful, talented Shevon to introduce our topics for today.
Oh, thank you for the intro, Ana Rosa. So, as everyone knows, it was MLK Day, and it causes a lot of reflection in myself, and I hope for others as well. But I feel that we still, while we have made quite a bit of progress, we still have a long way to go. And so, relating to that is, feelings of peace and protection, inclusion, self-awareness, in our allies, and really just in this season, being aware of where we are as a society is key to progress. So, I have fond memories of MLK Day growing up. We had Mrs. Wright at our school, who was the first Black teacher in Santa Barbara County, little fun fact, who had us, recite the I Have a Dream speech. And in that, I don't think that as students we fully understood that, and now as an adult, it really has settled into the core of me, and I hope other people as well. But I feel like Martin Luther King, he was a radical at the time. His ideas were not well liked by the majority. I believe he only had a 25% approval rating. So he was, mostly disliked. And, I can get started on his murder, but perhaps we shouldn't. Fun fact, I do share that my birthday is the day that he was shot and killed. So
April 4th.
Yes, April 4th.
Yeah.
So, in any case, I do feel that while these ideals are still relevant, we do have a long way to go. And for our children, it's important to have these conversations, very open conversations about, why things were the way they were. I get a lot of whys in my household. Why would people feel that way? Why? They don't understand it, and quite honestly, I don't either. But here we are.
Well, because it's about power, and I think Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. often gets co-opted by even, very conservative people who are pretty hateful toward anyone who's different from them. But when as you said, he was a radical, and he was anti the military. He believed in economic and social justice. He believed that the wealthy were hoarding the resources of this country, and believed that those resources should be redistributed in a radical way. And all of those things somehow get left out when talking about him. But those are the things that to me are the most inspiring, and to just remember the fact that he was disliked, and I would even say despised, by a lot of people. Hence, the jail time and the assassination, as you said, and to indicate to us that sometimes, regardless of the lack of safe space, for us, we do still have to make those strides for our community, right? But there is still that aspiration, at least within me, to be in safe spaces. And I think that's what we also wanted to talk about is like, how do we create those safe spaces around us in our day-to-day life with our family members, with people that we're friends with coworkers, because even though we're allowed, as brown and black people to exist in certain places that we were not able to before, the question is, are we able to fully exist and be ourselves, or do we have to like break ourselves down into small little chunks and pieces so that people don't choke on our existence, because they're not ready for us, because they're not ready for our brilliance. And uh, um, I'm ready for the day where that is no longer the case, where we can walk into a room and be our full selves and not have to shrink ourselves for the benefit of others who either have intolerance or insecurity or hate issues. Because it's 2023, it's about damn time.
Right. Well, I like the way you said, break yourself down into little chunks and little bite-sized pieces so that, people can handle you or tolerate you, right? I think about our brothers and sisters in the LGBTQ community who are also kind of fighting this new fight. And well, I wouldn't say new. It's been ongoing, but I think that it's garnered a lot more attention as of late. But it's like, why do we have to remain small in order to make others more comfortable? And how do we allow each other to be our, authentic selves and just be in peace? So, for me, I am very accepting, very of whoever you are. I have previously, growing up, I did have a different mindset. I would question a lot, but I did have a different mindset. And in more recent years, what do I care if someone, wants to be someone else or a person of color? Why is this person of color not treated the same way that anyone else is? Why do we have to go through these things? So in creating these safe spaces, it's like you just have to blanket in love, right? But that idea is really hard for people who, it's like when you don't know something or aren't familiar with something, it can be scary. So how do we get past those fears?
Well, I think what's interesting to me is that what it really takes is communication, because I think we really are much more similar than we are different once we get down to it, like the things that we care about. And there is definitely a race analysis there, but there also needs to be a class analysis. And there's also a lot of white folks who have grown up in very poor communities, with lack of resources. And I have, in my opinion, much more in common with them than I do with wealthy people who might be people of color, So, I think it's important to just understand that there's ways to build bridges across all of our communities, if we're open to have those dialogues and communication, and if we let the fear, you know,
Mhm.
put that behind us,
Yeah.
because fear is really the most destructive emotion that I can think of, um, that prevents us from loving each other and from being in real community with each other.
They say that everything is rooted in fear or in love, right?
Mhm.
And so which one will you choose? And it's sometimes it's hard to differentiate that or to be conscious or aware of it. So like you said, having these open and honest and sometimes very difficult conversations with our loved ones, with our peers, is are ways to move that forward a little bit in love. um but you have to feel safe enough to have these conversations. um there have been times where within my own family, we've had some really hard conversations where people's feelings got hurt because it was like, I'm actually offended that you think this way, or it, points try to get get across, and then it might come out as angry or hurt in one way or another. But to me, feeling safe and secure in conversation is a whole nother level of intimacy that we need as human beings, right? We need to be able to voice our opinions and our stances, and not immediately want to clobber one another. Although I can say, there have been stances on the other side of things where I'm like, I just want to punch you in the throat. It's like, I
Yes.
can't believe you're saying this. I can say that too.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it too is just making that leap, right? Because sometimes it's more comfortable to just stay in that ambiguity of like, oh, does this person feel this way or do they not? Than to actually take that leap of having that difficult conversation. Because, it's like you're afraid that those connections will be severed once you make that step. And so, how do we be open to conflict being a door for connectivity instead of just being a door for more conflict,
Yes. Ooh, I like that. Well, in families, you'll hear this like, oh, in our family we don't talk politics, or in our family we don't talk religion. And I'm on the side of like, how do you not? you know, but it's because there are opposing sides. Um, and so what do? Do if someone is on the side of the wrong side of history, let's say, do you cut them off? Do you try to educate them? Because they're certainly rooted in their own, stances. They're definitely um, they've got a whole different view on it. So, do you sever that relationship with that family member, or what do you think, Rosa?
I mean, I think it really depends on how open people are to learning. If they're like, no, I believe this way and I'm going to be, let's say, closed off to the queer community, for example, and like that's just it, and I'm going to stay in this hate, then I mean, how long can you, especially let's say you have friends who are queer, like what do you do? Just not invite them to things because you don't want them to interact with that person. So it's like you, in a way, you do have to choose at some point if they're not open to that learning and to, not just like being closed-minded and hateful. So
Yeah,
I think it depends on the person and
yeah.
their ability to have conversations and expand their mind.
hmm So I have, speaking of queer, so a quick little story here is that one side of my family are very uh, religious, they're Christian, but the thought or the idea of someone being gay or queer is, it's like against the rules. It's you won't be going to heaven. And I, as a child, would be like, yeah, but how? I don't understand. They felt that it was a choice, right? The devil was coming in, and we even had a gentleman in our church who at the time was battling AIDS, and he lived a gay lifestyle, and they're like, well, he's healed from that. He's healed from that lifestyle, but now he has to deal with the consequences of his actions, was the way it was taught to me. And I just thought, that is so harsh. That's not love. God is love. How is this? So fast forward 2 years later, I have a nephew who has said, since he could talk, been telling us that he's a girl. And so it's very funny because I I was like, whatever, you want to put on the dress, put on the dress. That's fine. And, a lot of kids, they like to, play in costume and things like that. Well, now he's 9 or 10, and still feels the same way.
Mhm.
And I said, well, Boo, you can be who you want to be. I just want you to know that you're loved. You're very much loved. And you don't have to pretend to be anything else. Would take my daughter's dresses home, like little hand-me-downs, and says, Mom, gonna let you have this? And he said, well, I can just keep it at my grandma's house. And so it struck me that being so young, she already knew she had to hide who she is,
Right.
and so I think about these um these struggles, and it's like, how do we offer peace and protection and security and love to these group of people who feel like they can never be themselves openly? And it does take a lot of courage um and bravery, for sure. But as a society, can we just say this is a human being, and no matter what they choose to do, can we just blanket in love?
Yeah.
Very
That's
different.
so hard for a person to feel like they can't be their full selves with their own parents,
Mhm.
Like, that's so hard. Um, that's why I emphasize it to Gloria every single day. Like, I love every single thing about you. And like, there's literally nothing that would make me stop loving you. Um, like, I tell her that a lot. Um, you
Thank
know,
you, my mom. Can you just give me all the positive affirmations every day?
I love you too. um, I mean, I'm always fangirling over you and all the things that you do, and um, I hope that you do get that love from your family because you definitely deserve it.
I do. Yes, I do. As well as you do. You do too. And missing our sister Allie today, for sure.
No, I'm like, she would have a lot to say about this topic.
I know, I know. But and always from the side of her therapy background, I think about, okay, what traumas have people experienced in their lives that cause them to lead in fear? And it's always, you know uh and from personal experience, when I lead in fear, it's certainly to protect that inner child. It's to protect that scared little girl, who may not be able to really articulate what she's feeling, or anything like that. So, you know missing Allie on this topic, for sure. But you know it also brings me to this idea that we take on a lot. We put a lot on our plate in order to care for others. And you know something to consider is actually, as women of color, especially, we take things on because we know we can. We're strong, we've got this. It's like, no, I can do it. um I can handle it myself, whatever the case is. So you start to take things on because you can. But in this season, the goal is, for me, um, to put more things down because I can. So instead of saying yes to everything, um, we're going to start saying no. We're going to start, clearing off that plate a little bit to allow space, um, to feel safe, to feel sane sometimes.
Mhm.
I don't know. At times I can feel that I try to overdo it and keep myself busy and get involved in this and that, because it's like my heart is like it wants to do so much. Um, but then suddenly it's like in my head, it's like a million things going, and I lose sleep and things like that. So as a mental, excuse me, as a mental health check, it's like, okay, let's put things down. Let's slow it down a little bit. I'm not very good at it, but I'm trying.
Well, I know you want to do so much because you love your community, as do I. And also, how do we care for our community if we're not taking care of ourselves? Because I know the speed that I was going for, I don't know, the last 10 years, is not sustainable. And so I completely agree that I need to put things down and slow down. Um, and it's very difficult because I think about the world that my daughter is going to live in. You know, you think about climate change, think about racism, all these things, and it makes you feel like you need to do more. But sometimes the more makes it so that you're not able to give as much to certain key things, because like the quality diminishes, right? If you're doing so many different things, whereas if you're able to focus on a few things and do those really well, you know, I think it feels better, because I know I was always just running ragged, feeling like, oh, I need to catch up on everything, like I'm playing catch up all the time. um and you know, like I have a pile of clothes that I need to put away, that is just
Yeah,
sitting there. And
the
so like
famous. Yeah.
you know, it's like, okay, I need to take care of some basic things at my house so that I'm able to be out there in the community and just not feel stressed out all the time. Because I always get this knot like in my shoulders. uh,
Yeah.
and I know that there's a different way. There's a different way to do it, and so I'm trying to be better about making those choices, um, and to say the magic word, which is no, because it gives more space for your yeses, and it's just really powerful. And I think as a woman specifically, and a woman of color, um, it's very hard for us to say no because we're conditioned to say yes all the time,
Right.
to cater toward what everybody else wants to do, and forget about our own needs and wants, um, and desires. So yeah, we got to remind ourselves.
Yeah. A lot of us, it's a selfish feeling when you're like, no, I have to take care of myself. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't sound right. But like you mentioned, having the soreness in your shoulders and feeling like the knots, it's like the stress manifests itself in our bodies in different ways. People who, tend to get sick a lot, they probably stress a lot. It's probably just things that are manifesting in our bodies. Allie was going through that with her back not too long ago. Um, and feeling like, uh, I'm a big believer in releasing energy, um, physically, in a way that, like, move your body, and in whatever ways it takes. What do you like to do? Do you like to dance? Do you like to hike? Do you want to lift weights? Do you want to stretch? Do you want to do yoga? Do you want to just ground yourself? Put your feet in the sand or walk in some grass. Um, Take a nap in the grass, something like that, where energetically you can move that. But I mean, you're spot on in saying that we're so conditioned to just take it, like, as if, it's like, oh yeah, the world's on my shoulders, that's okay. I'm okay.
Well, and even like, how do we model slowing down for our littles? You know, because like my daughter, she loves Roblox. She's always on her tablet, and that's fine to a certain extent. But like in the mornings, I don't let her do that when we're on our way to school. I put on meditation. Like there's this meditation. I'm going to give a shout out to another podcast out there called Good Moms, Bad Choices. And they have a meditation that they always introduce, a new meditation for kids at the beginning of every year. And so like this morning, I played it for my daughter, and I could just tell like it helped just like get her ready for the day. Um, and it's so cute because it is catered toward kids, you know, and like the things that they would care about and think about. But they they also have one for women of color. So um,
Ooh.
so I also use that one for myself.
Oh, well, you have to send that to me. I'll definitely be interested. Yeah, we started doing that too. It was like stressful days. We would take, I have an app and it has like 2 to 5 minute meditations, and some of them are guided and some of them are just like frequencies. And you know, and this is why I like crystals and all the woo woo things, because everything has a frequency, right? The earth has a frequency. There's a frequency for sleep. There's a frequency for healing, and that's why sound baths are really amazing, because it's like all of these vibrations are going off in your body, and you don't even realize how much it might affect you. But sometimes we'll take these little 2 to 5 minute meditations and they're like, okay, but I think they actually dig it. They're, they'll kind of like, all right, we'll do it. But I think they're actually enjoying it. So,
Well, I think it's important to teach them to be in touch and in tune with their bodies, because I think most of my life I probably wasn't. And even just like yesterday, Gloria and I went to get our nails done. I don't know if you can see this
ooh,
Black Panther inspired nails.
I
Um,
love it.
and when Mariah, my nail artist from Eagle Stroke Nails, was doing my nails, she's like, "Can you like release the tension in your fingers?" And I did not even realize that my fingers were like super tense. I'm like, "Oh, you're right. They are super tense. I'm sorry." But I'm like, how is it that I'm at a nail appointment? I'm supposed to be relaxing. And even there, my fingers are like super tense. So yeah, I have to like breathe. And, like
Yeah, yes, it's a lot that we don't realize. And even when like we tend to hold our breath a lot, when you're stressed or tense or whatever the case is. It's like you don't even realize what you're doing. There's so many things that happen unconsciously. But it's like the brain is only geared to focus on one thing at a time, right? So what were you focusing on when you were at your nail appointment? Like, what was going on in your head that had you tense without you realizing it?
yeah,
Right.
I think I was worrying about getting Gloria home for her bedtime,
Yeah.
because it was just taking a little bit longer, uh, because she does such exquisite work. So, she takes her time to make it perfect. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about getting her in bed and not so that she wouldn't be tired this morning.
Right.
So I think that's what I was focusing on.
Yeah. And see, and then you didn't even realize that. So I think sitting still and breathing and relaxing is one of the hardest things that that we can do these days, because we're always on the go. We're overstimulated by our phones, by the TVs, by the computers, by the, whatever it is. And so taking a moment to breathe, um, sometimes it sounds silly, or it sounds like, oh, I just have to breathe. Yes. And sit in quiet, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Even if it's just one or two, um, it's kind of like resets yourself a little bit. I don't know, shall we right now? Is that like
Do it.
okay? So we're all gonna close our eyes, and then we're gonna relax the muscles in our cheeks and in our jaw. And then we're just going to breathe in real deeply through our nose and take a pause at the top, and then release it slow. And see, even just one, that's like, and
Yeah,
so,
breathing
mhm,
for sure is the most underrated thing.
right? It's like, "What, I'm not breathing." So even like something like a 4 count inhale, and then try to extend that on the way out. So on the exhale, maybe do like a 6 to 8 count, something like that. Um, but really being mindful of like relaxing your muscles. And if you think about it, when you close your eyes, it's like, okay, let's think about this, the empty space behind the eyelids, it's a cool, dark space when you close your eyes. It's not nothing, it is something. But just enjoying that or observing it, maybe not necessarily enjoying, but just observing and relaxing the muscles in the cheeks and in the jaw. We have so many muscles in our face and tend to carry a lot of tension in the jaw as well. And then kind of allowing that to drip down the neck and throughout the shoulders. So if you are listening to this and you're sitting and your shoulders are rolled forward, maybe just take a moment to roll your shoulders back and kind of sit up tall. And when you take that deep breath, it will allow a little bit more space in the lungs for that. And relaxing your legs as you're sitting. We do a little meditation sometime too, but just observing the breath, and taking that time. It's a task, for some. But if you just try for that one breath, that one time, um, keep working at it. And eventually, you can maybe sit and meditate for 5 minutes or whatever the case is. But yeah,
That was lovely. Thank you so much.
breathing. Yeah,
On that
breathing.
note, I'm going to do station identification because I haven't done it in a while. You are listening to 96.5 FM with Shevon Hoover with Warrior Mother and Ana Rosa Rizo Centino with Que Madre. And today we are missing the lovely Ali Cortez with Bienestar CCC. And, with this topic, I'm also wondering, like, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Dolores Huerta, Cesar Chavez, all these amazing leaders. Did they have anything at all that they did for their own wellness? Like, I wonder if
Mm.
they got to think about it at all on a daily basis as they were undertaking these huge fights. Yeah, I just wonder about that because I know Dolores, for example, does like to dance. Like, she could really dance if you see her on the dance floor. So I know that that's
Oh.
one thing that she would do when she could. But yeah, I just wonder if, like, my parents too, I think about, like,
Mhm.
if they, when they were bringing, all their kids to this country, um, and my mom and my dad, like, did they do anything for their own wellness? Because now when I see my mom and all the health struggles she's going through, it's almost like a manifestation of everything, that she's been carrying on her back for so long. Um, and yeah, I pray for our elders. I pray for our community's wellness and for people to feel
Mm.
like they can breathe and that they can be supported. Um,
Yeah, and unfortunately, I don't feel like our elders did have many outlets or options in stress relief. Um, I feel that like we are changing as a society in that way where it's like, okay, we're paying more attention to what's going on in our bodies. Back then, I think it was just like, it's fine. I'm gonna have a drink and go to bed and lay down and take a nap. Or um, I just don't feel that self-care was a huge priority. It was kind of just more about survival and not so much about um, I don't know, caring for each other's well-being. I mean, I it's so weird how things have changed. But I mean, if you think about it, um, it's like, and this topic has come up before, how men interact with their sons. We think about how men interact with women and vice versa now. Um, compared to how it was many years ago.
Yeah. I feel like maybe this is the next part of the movement, focusing on that wellness. I think I lost you for a second there.
Not sure what that was.
So we had a little bit of a technical difficulty there. Hopefully it didn't interrupt too much, but I was just saying that maybe this wellness aspect is like the next part of the movement in like caring for our community and making sure that, beyond just surviving, that we're getting our community to thrive.
Absolutely, yes. And in that is like caring for yourself, pouring your own cup first in order to serve others is kind of the key, and keeping that the energy going in the right direction. Rather than feeling so depleted, we want to ensure that we're able to pour into others as our heart's desire. And also, having conversations with our children is a huge part of it. And I am a huge advocate in telling children, I guess, just explaining things using facts, but keeping it very simple. um I feel that children are oftentimes underestimated. They completely understand the things that you tell them, and having complete conversations with them with facts, but keeping it very simple. We don't need to bombard them with details, but ensuring that they know their history and the direction that we want to go.
Definitely. Yeah, keeping the lines of communication open are so key. Because it wasn't for lack of trying or because my parents didn't want to, but they had so many hours outside of the home that I got to have very few conversations with them. I mean, on weekends I would try to talk their ear off and like make up for the weekdays that we weren't able to see each other. But as much as I can, I try to keep those lines of communication open. And when it seems like there's a question, instead of just like going on to the next thing, pausing and being like, baby, did you have a question about that? Um, so that she doesn't feel like she has to like swallow her thoughts and questions, and that she can process things and think about things critically. Because I definitely don't want to raise another cog for this machine of capitalism. I want to raise a critical thinker that can stand up for herself and her community.
Well, I think you're doing an amazing job. It's just like quite the amazing job. It's like uh I see or I hear the way you speak to her, and I just wish more parents would do the same.
And you're doing an amazing job too with
Thank
your
you.
precious ones.
Thank you. We do have quite the conversations here, so but I think that you know um when they have problems, when they have thoughts of like, well, this doesn't seem right, I feel like they are more open to come to you. Like, your daughter is probably very comfortable in coming to you to ask you questions, or to say, this happened at school today, this is how it made me feel. um I did not have that either. And so, but I also just think, like, again, it was just a different time, and it was just a different way of living. And I'm grateful now that, we're teaching kids about emotional intelligence and really kind of working on developing their character, rather than just kind of letting them float by.
That's so huge. The only time when it becomes an issue is because she is so comfortable talking with me. I put her down to sleep every night. So after reading the two books and starting the sleepy time music, like she still wants to keep talking, and specifically last night, like I think we were still talking close to 10:30, and she gets up at 6:30. So I'm like,
Okay.
oh, she's gonna be tired in the morning.
I know. And what's so funny is my kids started telling me, because I'm like, you need to go to sleep because it's late and you're gonna be tired in the morning. You know what they say? Well, we're
What?
tired every morning. It doesn't matter. They are my children. I am I'm an early bird, because of work. I meet clients very early, but if it were up to me, I'd sleep in, and that's the same way they are too. So they're like, no matter what, we're gonna be tired. So it doesn't really matter what time we go to sleep. I'm like, oh, you too.
Well, your body lets you though, because my body is so used to waking up early to get Gloria ready for school that I think even if I could sleep in, my body would still be like, "Oh, time to get up."
Yeah, no, so no, I mean, sometimes I'll wake up. Usually the alarm clock goes off at 5:30. So sometimes I'll wake up at that time, but if there's not an alarm set, it's a done deal. I'm missing that session. In any case, I think we are out of time here. I know, I know. It's always a pleasure being here. I'm always so honored.
Yeah,
And
much for leading us today with these beautiful topics that you came up with, and just all your eloquence and ways of seeing the world and mommyhood and life. And I just really value you as a person and as a friend.
hi, Ana Rosa, I'm so grateful for you and all that you do and not just, for your daughter, but, for our community. I think that, having you as a ray of light I feel very, very blessed to have you. So,
You're gonna make me cry.
oh, it's a love fest. All right, everyone. Well, until next time, I hope everyone has a very wonderful day.
Yes, thank you for listening.
Bye bye.